Tes parents disent que tu mens tout le temps.
Je mens de temps en temps, quoi. Des fois, je leur dirais des choses qui seraient la vérité, ils me croiraient pas, alors je préfère dire des mensonges.
Welcome to the show, everybody. Hope you're doing well. It's a time to talk about a film today, and this one is titled 400 Blows. Plot spoilers in this because if you haven't seen it, what's wrong with you? It's 1,000 years old. Actually, it came out in 1959, directed by François Truffaut. François Truffaut, excuse me, is a very interesting person. He was a French film critic and a very famous one at that, and scathing. He turned his blade on a lot of his contemporary, not hit at the time, he was a critic on the contemporary filmmakers of the time, but he loved film. And he's interesting just to look at on his own because this film is loosely based on his life. I think it's his first film. Yeah. And how interesting to see a person who just says, you know, I'm going to put skin in the game. I criticize film. Now it's time for me to make films. And apparently he had watched A Touch of Evil by Orson Welles, and he was excited and he made this film. And as that film is kind of dark, this is a different kind of darkness about a boy who, he's not a perfect child. Nobody's perfect, but he gets maltreated a bit by his family and by his teacher. They just don't quite know what to do with him. It's hard to watch at times because you don't like to see children, you know, slapped, ridiculed, made to look like fools, as this teacher does, calls them out, doesn't have the respect for the student. And this kid, this child actor, his name is Jean-Pierre Léaud. How do I pronounce these French names? Help me. But he there's a kind of a documentary feel to the film where you I don't know, emotionally you get attached. You appreciate the other kids in the film and how they act because you feel like you're watching real life kids. And there's that level of empathy that we've been seeing in films where there's a respect for children here that is not always present when you see films that you feel like it's just a vehicle for the adults in the room. Children should be seen and not heard, but not here. And you follow him through kind of an abusive classroom. There's only one moment where this teacher shows empathy to this kid. And that's when the kid lies to him and said his mother just died. And that's why he hasn't been acting appropriately. And then the teacher just sort of, I'm sorry, please forgive me. And you real empathy, but only when he hears that, which was a lie, and then he gets in big trouble. This is a very good film. There's more to talk about. I really liked it.
Ruben, I really enjoyed it. You're not going to believe this. I have never seen it. I've heard of this film. I've been wanting to watch it, and I watch it. And I'm not going to lie to you. The first few minutes, I didn't like the kid because he's kind of a troubled boy. But then I started watching and saying, wait a minute, it reminds me of a lot of other kids, you know, we have in our classrooms that are troubled, and you don't know their backstory. So his backstory is comes from a tough, background. His parents actually his father is not really his father, right? His father has said things like, I gave my name to him, right? But you still feel like they love their child, but they don't know how to parent, right? And at school, like you mentioned, that teacher, he doesn't know how to teach. You know, these kids do not respect this teacher. When he turns his back, they're throwing things and they're being silly. And you would think they'd be real respectful because he's coming down hard on them, right? The punishments are tough. Cleaning boards. Sometimes I'm not sure if I saw any corporal punishment, but definitely pretty close to that. Definitely there's been some suspensions. And so you follow this kid throughout the film, and I start caring for him. And like you said, it does have that feel of a documentary. It's black and white, but I like that it was done in black and white because it feels gritty, and it's a gritty story about a young man trying to deal with his life. And there's a point where you mentioned that he lies. He is definitely a person who doesn't tell the truth all the time, gets in trouble. But there's a scene where a psychologist is talking to him and he goes, yeah, I lie, I tell the truth, but I realize when I tell the truth, sometimes people think I'm lying, so I might as well just lie. He doesn't say those exact words, pretty close. And I think, wow, he gets to a point now where he doesn't even tell the truth, because why do it? And then no one's going to believe him. And it's a really it's an emotion sad story. I got a little teary-eyed at the end there. Well, throughout the film, not just the end, because it gets it at your gut. And I thought, is this his first film?
Yes.
Truffaut, right?
Truffaut.
Dude, his first film, he does this. It's crazy awesome, a classic. And it's the first time I ever saw it. I was like, how can I have never seen this? I've heard of it. I know about it, but I never saw it. And Ruben, I just loved it. The performances were great. These young actors were just terrific. But the parents and the teacher, they did a good job as well. So yeah, I would definitely want people to watch this. Recommend it.
Well, and because this is a teacher podcast, we want to emphasize what the teacher does. And I want to point out maybe there might be a misunderstanding that, what you're saying here, guys, is that we don't know their background, so we need to take their nonsense, take a student's misbehaviors. No, it's actually not quite that. If you watch it closely, he's not as bad as what they're saying. He is not really a really bad kid. He follows the rules. Some of them, he does hit the rules in his own way. He writes a little mustache on a girl's face of a girl in a bikini on a picture. Okay. But when they tell him to take out the garbage at home, buy groceries, he's pretty obedient. He's following along what the teacher is saying, more or less. He's just being a kid. At one point, he's accused of plagiarizing Balzac in a report. And the teacher just absolutely goes ballistic. Now, wait a minute here. By the way, Balzac, my favorite author of all time.
Oh,
and he always, here's the thing. And there's a whole segment. Now, this is what I don't remember when I saw it many, many years ago. Him creating this kind of like this homage to Balzac in his home. This is a kid with depth. Balzac is a very sophisticated writer for a 12-year-old. And then he's reading Balzac. Let's say he did plagiarize Balzac, although it's not clear if he completely did with the teacher. He might have gotten some ideas from Balzac. But let's say he did. Hey, he's reading him. Start to think. Use your, the teacher should have thought and rationalized here. At least he's reading them instead of, making a World War III out of this.
Yeah, they went totally way out of line. Right. I mean, 2 week suspension. I mean, that was like two for this situation. And another kid said, no, I didn't even see him do that. I think it was, I didn't see him copy. So I don't know. I agree with you. I think we have to encourage these kids who are writing and who are reading things that are beyond our, there's another film that we're going to review about these kids who are asking questions and reviewing things that are way beyond their years. But you start having that in front of you, start picking up little things here and there. And like you said, I never even heard that author, Ruben. I feel like a dummy right now. But and you're saying that's your favorite author? What's his name?
Balzac. He is. I never heard of him. We haven't really covered him on this channel because it's. I don't really know how to. Okay. He is the most prolific writer. One of the most prolific writers of all time. They say he wrote 100 books. He probably wrote more. And he covered just Paris life. When he died, he wanted people to 100 years later, 200 years after his death, people to read his books and say, oh, I know what Paris was like in 1815. I know what Paris is like in 1799. Oh, I know this street. I read it in Balzac. So when people describe Balzac, this is becoming a Balzac.
We got to read. I have to read a book of his
episode. Yeah. I didn't intend this. When people read Balzac, they say, "Oh, I don't like Balzac because he's too descriptive. It's 2 or 3 or 4 pages of just descriptions." But it's not. When you read the description, he really is telling the life of Paris because he was afraid that when he died, people would forget it.
Hmm.
And to me, his descriptions are fascinating. I do want to mention this though. Jean-Pierre Léaud, when Truffaut died, Truffaut died when he was 52, and kind of
Yeah.
young, for an accomplished director as he was. He said this. So he worked with Léaud,
Several
Léaud and Truffaut
movies,
worked
right?
together, several movies. And he said this about Truffaut upon Truffaut's passing. And so now Léaud is 79, and so years ago when Truffaut died, he said this about him. He spoke to children like they were adults. He realized that children understood things better than adults did. He was purely intuitive, and we operated in a sort of, sorry, let me get this right. We operated in a sort of complicity. I like that because this idea of we were, thick as thieves together. We were complicit as we created this masterpiece together. Think about that for a moment. The idea of working with your students as opposed to working at your students. So check it out, everybody. 400 Blows, François Truffaut, and we'll see you next time.